Tudo bem? Não, quem devia estar nervoso é ele aqui, ó. Sou, e aí, tudo bem? Prazer, Fábio.
Tô sempre com você, meu amigo.
Que isso, Fábio, prazer, Vinícius. Posso?
Vai começar, Fábio?
Infelizmente, tô brincando. Tá bom, né? Tá bom tomar um cafezinho, uma cerveja.
Começa agora, não tinha acabado.
Depois a gente tem o segundo round.
Você tá com a lapela aí?
Tô bonito?
Tem um microfone só? Tem um desse só?
Eu só tenho um desses, mas muitos tenho daqueles que.
Então tudo bem, tudo bem.
Por quê? Você queria o quê?
Bora?
Posso? Guys? Guys? Hello? Sorry. Guys? Hello, hello. Sorry for interrupting this beautiful networking time with some pizza. I'm sad too, but let's get started. I think it's the moment. So take your seats, grab a slice of pizza, it's fine, and let's go. Fala, Bento.
Parabéns.
Obrigado. Parabéns você. Tudo bem?
Tem que esperar ele aquecer agora aí.
É tipo, tem que dar um tapinha no negócio. Lá no fundo, nada.
Você vai falar muito rápido no sinal aí.
Qual sinal você quer que eu faça?
Sei lá, não era uma lua aí, sei lá. Paz e amor.
Vamos só esperar ele. So yes, I will make like some cheap talk until the the screen starts working. So guys, thank you for joining us. Like after a holiday, right? You guys are such a nerds. Me too. And I think it's great to see like new faces, some old faces. I always going to say that because I think it's great to build like this community and like talk with each other. I see like people are eager like to go out and like talk new, meet new people, and that's wonderful. And that's what we try to achieve it here. Share some knowledge and meet new people because everyone is special, right? We just need to know everyone. Like, I'm never going to know everyone, right? We're going to know some people and we're going to turn them special. I will say first, thank you for ISS to having us. We started like this project. Where's João? Here's João too. It's helping us organizing too. Filipa too. And we started like this project with like to share some knowledge, to meet people, and we start to see that the companies are pretty like eager to help us, to give us space, to give us some delicious pizza and beer. Yeah. And what I have to say is like thank you for Isabel and for Joanna, where's there eating some pizza, yes, for having us. So if you want to give a word.
First of all, thank you so much for your time and for you being here. Very important for us for this community. Thank you once again because this is really important for us. Just being here with you, supporting the community is always important to share knowledge and be here, all of us, to this moment. I think it's good. I don't know if you know ISS already. Does any one of you know? No? Okay. So ISS basically provides facility management services. We do these 360 services around building management. So we can go from services regarding technology, security, cleaning, and so on. But in Porto, we do especially tech. Porto is the third tech hub that we have. We have also in Warsaw, in Copenhagen. but basically Porto is the first development center that we have here in ISS. So this is our playground where all the magic happens in terms of technology. We have IoT, workplace experience, integrations, you name it. So if you want to have fun, you can join us. Joanna is over there. So if you want to know also what we have here in terms of positions, you can ask directly to Joanna, or if you prefer, you can go direct to our website as well. I hope you enjoy this meetup. If you have any questions, you can ask me, you can ask Joanna or Susanna as well. And thank you once again, and have a great time.
Thank you. Yes, again, yes. So I have two microphones because we're streaming. Yes. So I think, do you want to say some words? Okay. So guys, again, thank you SS for having us. And let's start with our first talk. That is Guilherme, right? It's that guy. So we'll talk about Solid. And let's hope to see something good. I know that's good. I already saw. That's it. So
Spoilers. Yeah.
excuse me.
Parece um artista. Tá falando com fone. Eu tenho que colar aqui?
Você quer que eu segure?
Pô, não, mas não. I don't know how to use this, so bear with me, please. Is it fine? Can you hear it? Yeah. Okay, so it's a big audience as this one. Okay, thanks everyone for coming. It's nice to have all those people here, and it's also nice to be the one talking a little bit and sharing some of the things I'm interested in, and I see a lot of power on. So we, as engineers, as developers, we are used to live in the chaos, right? We have a lot of demands from different teams, product design team, from all the stakeholders, and this is already a lot to manage and to tackle. But we also have to tackle our own code base, which is the part that we should take care of, and it's the part that we can simplify, because processes in all companies, even if you care about them, they can get a little bit messy. Our code as well, but since they are our ownership, we can make more impact on it. It's our job to make it simpler, to make it more understandable. Mortal and alternately wave. Start with the word number one. I wrote this code using JavaScript, actually no, TypeScript, for just the few types there. And I'm not saying it's the best code in the world, it's the simplest code in the world, but I think it's easy enough to understand and get a grasp on what's really happening here. Then, after making my solution, I came I came across this one. I don't know if you do lead code, but you can see the solutions from other users. And I saw this one written in Ruby, which is a language that I've used in the past professionally, but reading that code, I had no idea what was going on. No idea at all. And that's what simplicity means in our job, in our context. It's doing things that are easy to wrap your head around, that easy to extend, easy to maintain, and easy to fix whenever it's needed. This is a really nice quote from a fellow Brazilian, Lucas da Costa. He's CEO and founder at Reaper Cloud. Really interesting product, actually. I suggest you to take a look. And I saw a tweet from him saying this, that making things simple is complicated. And that's actually true. I actually do a joke sometimes. You know that saying that people say, make it work, make it work, make it faster, make it better, something like that. I usually say that you should make it work, make it better, make it simple. I think it's really easy to get in a complex state of things. And here it's maybe a hot take, I don't know, but I think you should most of the time optimize for simplicity, not for performance, because performance is usually not the how can I say, not the monster that's gonna haunt you weeks later or months later, but the spaghetti code, the strange code you wrote, the complex code you wrote, they're definitely gonna haunt someone eventually. It's just a matter of time until your future self or anyone in your team needs to touch that code again. In the performance, if there is any performance issues, your QA is gonna yell at you, your user is gonna yell at you, someone's gonna notice, okay? But the strange code, the complex code, it's gonna be there, always hidden inside all of your other complex code as well. And this is another quote, a lot of quotes here, and this one is from Rich Harris, the creator of Svelte. He himself says this about Svelte. This is about Solid, not about Svelte, but I think we should take inspiration on everything that's around us. And I'm not here to bash on any framework, any library, whatever. I'm just here to take references and remind us about how we can make things better for us and more simple. He said that on a discussion on the Svelte official GitHub repo, mentioning the difference that he's trying to make in Svelte by adopting runes. If you have ever seen Svelte code, before Svelte runes, that's now NRC, I think, in Svelte 5. This code in Svelte was everything you needed to create a reactive variable, okay? Which one do you think it's easier? Well, I mean, not easier, but which one do you think it's simpler? At the first glance, you're probably gonna say Svelte. But if I wasn't telling you that this is a reactive variable, would you really think that it is a reactive variable? I would not, And basically, that's what Rich Harris is trying to say when he say magical, not magic. He wants Svelte to feel like you are being magical, you're being a wizard, but he wants it in a way that's still clear and easy to understand what's going on. So just by adding this state room, it changes completely. In my opinion, it's way better, way simpler. And now I'm gonna finally get closer to Svelte. Not Svelte, sorry, Solid. Oops. The really big thing about Solid is it enables us to do reactivity without all the overhead we usually have when you use something such as React. I'm not bashing on React, it's something that I use every day. It's what pay my bills. But yeah, we have a lot of overhead, everyone knows. we need to take care of all the performance issues, basically manually, by using use memos, memoizing your component down the tree, being careful about whatever you put in your use effect, whatever, a lot of things. This is a common counter component written in React. I think most of the people are probably familiar with this, so I'm gonna just skip it fast. But now we are gonna do the same, but using Solid. Let's see how it will change. Hold on. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I don't know if you're gonna. Yeah, maybe. Okay, I think you can still hear me, right? Okay,
Yes.
it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's do this. I should have prepared this before. Sorry. Oops, not this. Okay, let's do this. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so it's really the idea is the same. The idea is there. What we need to make a counter? We need a piece of state to track the counting. So it's really similar to how we do in React. We have a tuple with a getter, which is the count, and a setter, which is set count, and we can use the create signal to create the signal. I'm gonna still talk a little bit about what a signal really is, so bear with me for a while. It's gonna make sense. We of course need to import this, right? So we can import it. Thanks. And okay, let's do some JSX here. And one really nice thing for me about Solid specifically is that you can use JSX. I know some people don't like it, but I think it's really nice, really nice syntax, and it helps us on the control flow of the components. So yeah, I like it. We can have a spam with a count here. And this is one thing that may sound strange for you when you're coming from a React background. We need to call that count. If we just use count here, we are not gonna telling the signal that we want to get their value. So this is something that it's strange when you don't use it, but it's gonna feel natural once you start using it more. So now let's say that we need a button that's gonna increment that counter. We can just create a button, attach an event handler here, and this event handler is gonna set the count to the previous one plus 1, right? And I'm going like fast on this because most of you can see that this is a really like common code. Oops, I forgot this. It's really familiar code. I didn't mean common. I meant familiar. So here you can see that it's already working. It's fine, and nothing strange here. Okay, but what's interesting is how this works. What do you think is gonna happen here? How many times this console.log is gonna run if I keep clicking it? One time. And that's the really big thing in Solid, because even though it feels strange for you now, I mean, for the ones that are not familiar with it, this feels more like a setup function. You are describing how you want your UI to look like, and any effect, any state that changes, it's gonna be directly replicated to your DOM. You don't have a virtual DOM here, and your console.log won't run. Because why it won't run? Because it doesn't depend on your signal. Why should Solid render it again if this never changes? This never changes. But if I want to log anything, anything when the count changes, I can just create an effect. We have something that's similar to use effect. We just create effect, and I can do this. But this won't work. I mean, not as the use effect work. If I click here, you can see that maybe it's a little bit too, maybe it's too small, but you can see that nothing's logged. Why? Because I'm not using the count here. So why would Solid have to re-render it? But now, since I'm already like I'm depending on this value to run this log, you can see that it gets logged. So that's a really interesting thing about Solid. I think once you get the grasp of how the signals work, how the create effect works, it's way more predictable, you know? Because if you had a use effect here on React, how many times it would run just by default? Depends. The answer is depends. Because depends on, are you using strict mode? Are you using strict mode, but are you in production? You do have a context around that component. If you have a context, it's going to be rendered like a lot of times. I mean, depends on how much time the context changes, right? So that's what I wanted to show you mostly. Let's go back. Okay, so let's go back. I mentioned some stuff about them, but let's go a little bit deeper on what are those principles on Solid. We have two main principles. The first one are the signals. Signals can be seen as a piece of state, but not only that. They can be seen as something that it's gonna be streamlined along your entire application if you want to. If you want it scoped to a single component, that's also fine. But this signal is gonna emit signals whenever it changes. So all the subscribers, every component, anything that depends on this signal will know when it needs to like re-render or recreate some nodes or react on this change. Here, I mean, it's not a real component, but if I do a console.log here, the first one, it's gonna just log 0. After I set count to 1, the second one is gonna log 1. This may look stupid, but in React, you know that's not how it works, right? It's not. Have you tried to access the value of a state right after you set it? You won't be able to access. You're probably gonna have to create a use effect, to watch for that change, and then access inside the use effect. We are used to that, and we may find that easy because we are used to. But I think it messes with our ego sometimes because we are so used to the complexity that we say, oh, okay, it's easy because we want to make our knowledge of that complexity worth it. But I mean, that's not predictable. Anyone that's like that doesn't come from our, let's say, our front-end world. I don't know, any engineer here that may be more exposed to backend, they're gonna see this. The way it behaves in Solid, it's way more predictable, and it's, in my opinion, it's the right way. There isn't a right way, but you know what I mean. And subscribers are the things, let's say the things that are listening to the changes on the signals. So whenever a subscriber listens to a change, it responds with a warning, let's say, that this signal needs to be updated. And a create effect is a subscriber. Everything that's that's inside the create effect, it's gonna be rerun if it depends on a signal that has changed. Also, one thing that took me a while to understand, and maybe the docs could be a little bit more explicit about, is that the JSX in Solid is by default a subscriber. So everything you have, the JSX you have in your return, it's a subscriber by nature. You don't need to wrap it around anything. that's why this works. Let me just go back a little bit. That's why this works. You see, it's not magic. It's just how it works. This is a subscriber, so that's why the span was being updated according to the count value. Now I'm lost. Where was I? Okay. And we have other primitives. They are, let's say, low level on Solid as well, but the lowest ones are signers and subscribers. Everything is basically built on top of them. That's also one big pro about Solid, in my opinion, because you have a few pieces that once you understand how they work, you have a good mental model to build like anything with it, and to understand the other primitives that were built on top of them. Here we have created Mimo that works really similar to how we use Mimo using React. It's not only a derived piece of state, but it's meant to be a derived piece of state when you have a big computation, expensive computation that we want to do. So it memoizes the value. This is pretty straightforward. This one's a little bit maybe not straightforward coming from React, but this is something that we usually reach out to libraries to have. And here in Solid, we can create a store that holds a state. We can put it's usually recommended to use arrays and objects, but it also accepts other data structures, and it uses JavaScript proxies under the hood, so it can track the changes not only in the first level, but also in really far nested levels. So yeah, and you can reuse that you can have a store and reuse that in many components as you wish. This one is really interesting, create resource. You can think of it as a create Mimo, but it's meant for async operations. So whenever you need to do data fetching, you can just use this. You have it within the framework already, and the data you receive from it, it also has knowledge about the status of the async operation you done. So if you fetch a user from your API, they're going to be able to render your component according to the data, to the status of the request. So you can check if it's loading, if it had an error, etc. So you basically have something that you also need to reach out for external libraries on most of other frameworks by default. So it's really nice to have this built in. And one thing that's really nice about signals is once you realize how they work, and once you work with them, so there's not something specific to Solid. We have a lot of other frameworks using signals, and that's not 100% true for everything, but it's nice for the memes. If you use signals, you can get rid of a lot of complex things you have on React, such as specific rules about hooks, the VDOM. The VDOM is actually something really interesting because I haven't mentioned that yet, but Solid handles the reconciliation totally different. Actually, there isn't reconciliation as we have in React. It goes straight into the specific node it needs to change. So it's really surgical updates. And it's funny because we used to say that the VDOM is fast, but nothing's faster than changing the DOM directly. The VDOM, it's another step. The React has to create all the nodes whenever there is a change on the handler in the VDOM, and then it changes the DOM. So if you cut that step, you're going to have a better performance in general. And here I thought about doing also, I also thought about doing a live code, but I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to show. I think it would take more time than I thought. So I have it prepared already. Let me just show it to you, what I wanted to do live. This is really interesting. You can see that you can manipulate the DOM directly. I'm not using JSX here. You can see that I'm using plain JavaScript. I'm not even using any render function from Solid. I can run this, and I can run this and show to you. I won't, but trust me, this works. It works on my machine at least. what I'm doing here is I'm creating a signal, as I showed in the counter example. I have an increment function that just increments the count number by 1. Here I create an h1, a heading element using document.createElement. So no JSX here. I reminded of that joke. Mom, no hands. Like, Mom, no JSX. It's still reactive though. And here I have a console.log that's triggered whenever the count changes. And here I'm setting the text content on the h1 whenever the count changes as well. And here I'm gonna run this because, sorry, but I have to run this. This is one of the most interesting parts. I'll have to rename the. Have you ever tried to do this in React? Create a set interval to update your state. What happens? It crashes. It doesn't handle that. It can't handle. Let me just remove this file. Oops. 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 Let's see if it works. Yeah. This is, let me just open the dive tool so you can see. You can see it's updating. I have a set interval. We put side by side. I have a set interval that's running each second, and it's calling this increment function here. You see the count's incrementing. It just works. And I shouldn't be impressed by this, but I'm impressed because I came from somewhere that I can't do this. And I'm also creating a button here. I'm putting modifying the text content to increment, and here I'm just attaching the increment function to the onClick handler, and that's it. And then I'm just appending the two elements to the body, and you can see that it still works just fine. So yeah, it's powerful. you can do a lot with those primitives. So that's it, I guess. If you have any question, feel free to shoot. If you want to talk later as well, feel free. You can do it. No questions? You have one? Two? No, just one. Just one per person.
But I'm the organizer.
Okay.
The first one is simpler. Is it possible to use signals in vanilla JavaScript, or it's mandatory to use some framework or library to build the UI?
To be honest, I'm not 100% sure. Maybe someone can help us help me with this, but maybe not this implementation from Solid, but I'm pretty sure you can. I have seen a lot of signals libraries, signal-based libraries, and there is even I don't know the specific name, but there is a proposal, a TC39 proposal to add signals to JavaScript. So eventually we may have this in JavaScript, and it would be nice because once we have this by default in the language, most of the frameworks will use it by default. They will implement that by default because they won't need to reinvent the wheel. Let's say they will have a way to handle state by default. So that's nice, I guess. I hope it's gonna happen.
I'm questioning this because of the second question. It's which one is the advantage to use the Solid instead of more solid frameworks or library like Vue or Svelte that already have, or it owns reactive libraries that works like Sinos, for example, Vue, or just use Sinos in Vue or Svelte, because I see that Solid is very simple, but I think it's very
early.
new.
Yeah,
And
not sure.
we don't have nothing big with Solid,
Yeah.
So I can see some advantage to move on from Vue or Svelte. From React, of course, there are always advantages to not use React. But looking for Vue or Svelte, what's the advantage to use Solid instead of those two?
I forgot to do that disclaimer, but I'm not advocating on favor of Solid at all. Maybe it looked like it, but I'm not. I'm advocating in favor of simplicity. I think we should make our lives simpler, our code simpler. And what my main goal on like reading more about Solid, checking how Ryan Corneato is going with the development, checking the ideas behind it, is to have a better mental model. But if I if I if I had to say like a case where I would use Solid instead of something else, I would say if you have something really interactive. But when I say really, it's like million changes each second, something crazy. The performance is gonna be like way better than React. It's not even close. Like you can see some benchmarks. That's the case where I would advocate to use Solid for sure in favor of React. But as you said, there are also other libraries, other frameworks that handle the updates, the DOM updates really well. Svelte, for instance. Svelte is used by a lot of data visualization people. It's really big in data visualization because you have a lot of changes, like in fast changes. And React, Svelte, also updates the DOM directly. Doesn't rely on a virtual DOM. Vue does a mix, as far as I know, right? It mixes VDOM with it does some weird shenanigans. I don't know how it works actually, but I would say that if you really need those big interactivities, I would say Svelte is also a really good option. And maybe, to be honest, I would use Svelte over Solid most of the times if I had to build something production ready. I'm not saying that Solid is not capable, but we have SvelteKit already working for quite some time now, and Solid Start is just in the RC phase. It was just the RC was launched like last week. So this is was about Solid, but I'm saying that use Svelte if you really need something similar.
Okay, thank you. No other questions?
Thank you. And if you want to keep in touch and, I don't know, just talk and see my ramblings on the internet, this is my handle on pretty much everything. So feel free to reach out to me. Thank you. Hope you have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's it. I think if I could like contribute a little bit, I think the great thing of Solid, and I think that what's happening with Frontend, is that I think that we hit a developer experience plateau, right? I think it's pretty difficult to overcome React in the developer experience. I think it's fun, it's cool, it's easy to write React code, and I think that what is great with Solid that you have this pretty close developer experience with like this fine-grained reactivity. But I one thing that I always say, like, do you guys imagine you guys going to your boss and say like, hey, let's go use Solid? It's
This
tough.
is my boss. I'm gonna.
So yes, let's use Solid. No, he's going to say let's use Svelte.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Guys, let's have a 2-minute break just to configure the next talk stuff. Yeah, that's it. Thank you, Guilherme. You're the man. And you're the guy. Eu vou precisar que você para a senha no meu PC.
Não, é o microfone, acabou a bateria, mano. Por isso que eu botei.
Só para dar uma respirada aí. A gente já outra vez ia saltando da pausa.
here with these meetups. Very important to us because even more important than we are here talking about some technology or some other thing, also to meet people, to exchange informations, and to have this kind of contact is very important. And first of all, thank you very much for this initiative because that's very important. Is it okay? No? Okay, sorry. So that's the question that I have to you guys. Do you really need Monorepo? And the question, first of all, I'm Thiago Alves. I'm from Fortaleza, but I'm living here in Portugal since 2019, so there's a long, not so long, but time that I'm here. And I'm engineer manager here on ISS. And this is some language that I have a chance to work with. So, yeah, and disclaimer around it before we start is that we need to split that. We will talk about monolith and monorepo, and they are not the same thing, okay? That's important disclaimer to talk in this initial moment, just because it will make sense in a few moments, you will see that. First of all, just talk a little bit about the project that we will talk about, and the same way as I'm very good creating variable names, for the project names, it's the same. So our project will be my app, okay, and we will have some modules in our my app that will be main, admin, reports, billing, and some shared components like UI components and shared. And that will be the structure for this. And before we continue with this, I don't know if you know this guy, and he says, what is the... So, yeah, and this is almost what you said before. Make it work, make it right, make it fast. And this guy is Kent Beck, one of the authors of the Agile Manifest. And I'd like to talk about it because what we'll talk here will be trying to use this part here to try to make kind of explain my thinking around it and to know if it makes sense using monolith, monorepo, polyrepo, or so on. And as I said, the question is that, and let's see what will happen in the end. First of all, let's make it work, because let's imagine that in our project we will start it and the main intention every time will be make it work. Okay, it doesn't matter if we use Svelte or React or Vue or some other framework, but the main intention is to make it work. And in this initial moment, let's imagine that we just want to make it work, and we'll create everything in the same repo. So we have our src folder, and inside of this we have our modules. Everything in the same repository. We have some advantage on that because it's simple to develop things, and because everything's the same code base, right, in the same repository. So it's okay to share dependencies, and also we will have every time just one CI and CD. So it's okay because every time that I need to run something in my project, I will need to use only one CI, and that's okay, and I will have my software in production. And also to test things, it's okay because, again, I have everything the same code base, and it's okay to test it, everything together. But we also have some issues with this because the same way as we will have more fast way to test it and to put in production in our CI and CD, we will have some dependencies, because imagine that for some reason you want to update some dependency in your project. It means that you will need to do it for all your modules. You are not able to do this only for some specific modules because you have everything in the same repo. Of course, you can do this, but it will be very extra effort. And because of this, sometimes you won't be able to move on with some new technology that you want. If, for example, you want to use Solid.js, every time that you use it, you need to apply for all your projects, and it's complicated. If you want to change something just to one module, actually you will do it for all of them. And sometimes this can be kind of tricky because it can complicate your life on that. But anyway, it's working. It's software production, that's most important, okay? But let's try to improve it and let's make it right. Because one thing that we could try to do to improve our organization here is, instead of having only one repository, we could try to split it in different repositories. Okay, so on that way, we'll be better because we will be able to isolate our code we'll be able to isolate our code, so everything will be independent because we'll be able to update something just to the main module, and it shouldn't affect anything in repo or in the reports or even in the UI components and so on. So it's one thing that we should take in consideration when it comes to try to test something in some of these modules, or when we want to have something more separated, because on this time, if we before we have only one pipeline to run it something and put my code in production, now I need some different pipelines to do this, and exactly the advantage and advantage that we have on that, because at the same time that we have some advantage, we have some other things that will be not so good, because I will need to have an extra effort to create a pipeline for each one, and it will create some complexity, because imagine that now I will need to update something in my app shared. It means that I will need to create one PR for each model that I have, because in this example, let's imagine that the web shared is my app shared is using by all of them, and when I need to update it, I will need to create a PR for each one. So can you imagine every time that I need to create something, some breaking change or some other thing on my shared components, I also will need to create a PR for each one, and it sometimes can be a bottleneck. And that's the point. What should I do, a monolith or a polyrepo? What about try to monorepo? Because in this case, according to the Monorepo tools, site that I strongly recommend you to read it, because there are a lot of things, saying things about the Monorepo. The definition that they have is, Monorepo is a single repository contains multiple and distinct projects with a well-defined relationship. Okay, and who currently is using this? Here we have some examples about repositories that are using using Monorepo in these structures. But before we start to talk about Monorepo, we also need to talk about the structure that they usually use to split things. Because we have two different fold organizations here. We can talk about the app-centric or package-centric. Because in the right side about app-centric, it's the most commonly used in companies and products, because we can split only things that I have from my components that I will release, in our case, the admin component or the main or reports, and separate things that will be shared between them, and in this case, shared and UI components. And centric, package-centric is most commonly used by open source projects and things that you need to deliver all your packages at the same time. So, for example, React or Svelte and some other projects that use things like this, they usually use the package-centric organization. And here, in our case, of course, we will talk about the app-centric. And in the last step, let's make it fast. And in this case, we will be able to have a simple dependency management, and the code sharing will be better because everything will be in the same repository. We have different modules, but in different in the same repository we will have different modules, and it makes easier because to onboard some new joiner or to create some new updating for some package or something like this, it's okay because I can do something for one module without any kind of side effect for each other, because I will be able to do one thing for one of them, and it shouldn't impact. For example, in my case here, I can update the version for the my admin without any kind of side effect for the main, my app main. But it's not so true that it will be fast, because I just put it because I'd like to use these three terms, and that's why I just put it just to complete the phrase. And I'd like to see it get back again. But like an advantage, we also have something, because the same way as a monolith, we have only one pipeline to build everything. And for the poly repos, we have different pipelines for each module. In this case, we will have only one repository, and we will have some difficulty to create things when it comes to pipeline, because you will need to use only one repository and one pipeline, and you need to know the change that you are doing. And after this, you will take the decision for, to know which module should I handle something. Because imagine that you make some change in the admin module, and during your pipeline, you will need to have some control about the change and to know if the module that you are changing is the same as you need to apply your things in your pipeline. Because in this, as I said, in this example, imagine that we will need to make some change in our main app. We need to have something in our pipeline to know how module I changed and prevent that I will make some thing in my pipeline using things only for this specific module. And to do this kind of thing, it's kind of easy, but just to explain a little bit about how it works in a Node even environment. If I want to create some monorepo structure, it's kind of easier because I just need to know the structure of folder that I want to use, and after this create my workspace. But there is an issue. Currently, NPM doesn't support the workspace protocol. So if I try to run some npm install using just it will break because currently the npm doesn't support it. And for to do this, we will need to use some extra thing. I don't know if you guys is familiar with. And also there is another thing, because the same way as we will have all our modules in the same folder, when I run some npm install, it will install all my dependencies, and I will have a node modules in each component, and my project will be giant. And this image, I think you are more familiar than I, because this is what will happen. Instead of having only one node modules folder, I will have more than this, and it will get all my data. But we can solve this problem because there is this kind of package that support us to handle this kind of thing. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, with PNPM. That's kind of the same as NPM, but it's faster and also has a good disk management. So instead of using node modules for each project, it will create a symbolic link for each one. So I just will use one installation for all of my package. I think let me try just to show you. I don't know if it's too small. If you are able to see this,
yeah.
Okay. I think now is better. So, because imagine that we have here our structure and we will need to install our project. And if I just use pnpm install, I sit here for a moment. I will have my pnpm lock, okay? And inside of this file, we will have something interesting, because now instead of having different folders and different things, I will have only like symbol links. So I will have my project, and here it will specify the path to my module. And if I try to see here what I have my app building, for example, I will have my node modules, but this is one interesting thing. Instead of having as linked and all other plugins, I will have just a link to the node modules that I have in my root folder. So instead of having a copy of this in all of my modules, I will have it only once, and in all of them I will have a copy to the main installation that I should have. So it's okay. It's a good way to manage things, but at the same time, when it comes to CI and CD again, it will take a time. It will be different because I will need to have some caching support to make it faster, because it doesn't make sense I just be able to install things faster, but every time I will need to have the same effort. But we have some tools to support with this, to support things in Monorepo, for example, NX, or Rush, or even Monorepo, because they create the possibility to create cache. So every time that I'm installing something, it will create some cache, as I have in this example that I have here using NX. It will create some cache, so the next time that I will execute again my some npm install, instead of trying to download everything again, it will use the cache and it will reduce the time to install things. In general, that's it. The question, yeah, and one funny thing is because I'm also talking about that because here in ISS currently we are using Monorepo and we are in this fight to try to migrate to Monorepo, and it's one thing that I'm speaking here, but at the same time we don't have it still. So, but we are in process. We are working on that, and exactly that's why I like to share this kind of thing because. I think that most important than we know about the technology that we will use, if it will be React or Svelte or some other thing, also about the way as you will structure your project, the organization that you have, it's very important because, of course, to know the version that I need to use in my React project is okay. If I need to use Solid or Sinos or some other thing, it's okay. But if I don't know how to organize my project, the way as I will deliver it, the best way as I will provide production, sometimes it's just nothing. And yeah, questions? Please. Again! Move on.
Thank you. So, Thiago, thank you for your talk. To be honest, I've never worked with a fully monorepo project that it's fully implemented to follow these patterns, but I think it's very cool. It helps some projects that have some UI libraries, for example. I think it's the most common scenario for us frontenders. But I have a more technical question, and I think you are very quite capable to answer that. It's, I think the most pipelines that we have, I'm not DevOps, obviously, but I know that it's the most easier way to build a pipeline. It's to, when something is pushed to the master, you trigger Jenkins file, for example, and run a pipeline to build whatever you want to push to production. My question is, if I have a monorepo with, for example, 3 projects, 2 different NPM libraries, how I will manage this on my CI/CD platform to not rerun the pipelines that it's useless?
Yeah, and that's a good question exactly because in this case we need some extra tool to support us with this because I didn't want to talk about some specific framework or package because I don't think it should make sense for my speech. But for example, as I mentioned, Turbo Pack or NX or Rush will support us with this because we can create. Let me see if I have some example. About it because I have I think I don't have it here, but with NX, for example, we can do such thing to know the dependencies and the easy work tries. With NX, for example, you are able to see this kind of dependency, because it provides us to this kind of thing. So since you have some integration in your CI and CD pipelines, you can use this kind of thing because you will know, for example, that billing is using UI components and also is using shared components. So in the same way as everybody is using UI components. So you are able to have this kind of thing, but it will be according to the package management that you use to support you with this.
Okay, so if I update
So if I update the UI components, UI component file and push it to master, for example, the pipeline will rebuild all the apps that depends from UI components. Okay.
Yeah.
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 Sounds nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Thiago. The guys just like make questions, right? I'm currently like working in like a project. They have like a Monorepo, and it's like 500,000 commits, but it's built with Bazel. So it's like more like manual that someone have done. And I have a question. If you guys can give like a sneak peek, you guys like trying to use Monorepo here. Do you guys already like selected which tool you guys going to use, and if so, if can you say why?
We already have a project using this, and in this case, Igor is taking care of this project. That's my ISS, and for this case, we are using Turbo. But for the main project that we have, we are still trying to find what will match better. But probably also will be Turbo or Next and X as well. And why? Just because of the support. Because NX is based on Leonard, that is a very old library to handle with this. So one thing that we are taking into consideration is one, how easy it will be to integrate in Azure Cloud, and the way as I will handle caching, because this is the most important things that we are taking into consideration to try to reduce the time that we have to release things. So, but right now we have these two options. One project is using Turbo, but the other, the main one that we are still having some research, we don't know yet. We are trying to see what will match better.
Thank you. I don't have a question. I have a comment about different Monorepo tools. I'm working for Grammarly, and at some point we decided that we need to build a cluster of monorepos. Our North Star is to merge every front end in the monorepo, and we tried two tools. The one tool is Bazel, and now we are leaning toward using NX. The problem with Bazel, basically it's a great tool. It's a great tool for backend, but if you would like to use it for front end, you need to do a lot of additional work. So when we started, it was 3 years ago. The tooling, I don't know, the parts of Bazel that are supposed to build a TypeScript, even the basic React was so not ready, so we spent a couple of months writing them from scratch or rewriting them. We're still using it for pretty huge project, but the problem no one understands how it works, because I don't know, it's just quite complex, and the thing is Bazel that it's very different from the typical front-end tool. So Bazel under the hood uses the Unix way of mindset, like it uses it's when you're using a lot of atomic tools, and you just pass output from one tool to another tool. So you don't have one combine. You need to build it from a bricks, and because of that, it's usually hard to apply to existing very front-end way libraries when everything is mutating, everything under the hood is just overwrites the files. Currently, we're experimenting with NX. It's a bit easier for front-enders to understand how it works, but it's still on the very early stages. Yeah, just a comment.
Very good. But just a question. Currently, in your structure, you have backend and frontend in the same monorepo, or is it different?
No. It's different. It's very different. We're using multiple front-end monorepos. We are thinking about merging them together, but when we have a lot of them and with different styles, so it's a huge it's a huge challenge to do it in a fast way and not to interrupt the overall development. So I believe it's going to be a project for, we have a plan for 1 or even 2 years how to merge everything together, and not everyone agreed with that, because everyone in very own project kind of, I'm owning in, I understand how it works, please provide a good reasoning, please provide a good tool to manage the huge monorepo. The second problem is a monorepo. I can stop. I can. No. Yeah, okay. Well, let me sit then. There are. So first of all, to answer, you already answered that. But if you would like to have a fast CI builds, you need to use some tool like Bazel and X Turbo. Under the hood, they will cache everything. And for example, when we migrated one monorepo to Bazel, if nothing will be changed, the build will take kind of couple of seconds just to pull the cache and check. If only top level package will be changed, then the build may be, I don't know, 15 seconds. But before the Bazel, we spent about 10 minutes to build the whole pipeline. So it's a huge win. But okay, this is the good part. The second not that good part, that you need to have a good CI management tool that will help you to manage huge monorepos, because when even couple of teams, maybe not couple, let's say 10 plus team working on the same UI, on the same monorepo, it may be hard to understand who owns what. Currently we are using GitLab, and unfortunately it doesn't provide, for example, a good management. I believe GitHub also doesn't provide a good management for monorepos. So you need to figure out how to set up code owners, how to ensure that everything will be working. Okay, probably at some point you will figure this out, but there is a next big thing. What if you need to not just merge into master, but what if you need to release a breaking change, for example, in one of your library, and you don't want to spend additional week on fixing or updating, let's say, some dependencies that may be on pause or maybe sort of abandoned, then you need to figure out how to manage this versioning. But on the large scale, I would say from my experience, there are 2 cases for monorepos. The first case is when the project is kind of small enough, and you just, like you mentioned, it's about something around monolith. You need to iterate fast. You would like to. There is a small team, and then the next benefit would be when there is a lot of engineers and a lot of teams working on the same code base, and you need to really separate, how to say, ownership, probably isolate some pieces, reuse them. Then it makes sense to I don't like this word, but invest into reshaping or merging into one monorepo. And to be honest, if you will migrate to monorepo at some point, and if there will be a lot of engineers working on the same monorepo, at some point you will realize that you need a separate team to support this monorepo, because this tooling is kind of endless investment. You need to, I don't know, speed up something. Someone would like to use a separate framework. For example, one of the reasons why we decided to use Bazel, because we wanted to build the design system that can be compiled into different languages. We wanted to have a design system to be compilable into the TypeScript, Swift, and C#. So because of that, we decided to use Bazel, and it actually works. But still, you need to support this Bazel build. At some point, we even hired the contractors that helped us to set up it and make it more clear.
Okay, thanks. Question?
So my question is like regarding my situation. So maybe you can help. So the thing is that on my prior job, we used to have like I would say decent Monorepo with a couple of applications and like I would say 3 npm packages. It was nicely managed, I would say, with the help of change sets and Turbo. So I kind of got used to the situation like that. Now I've changed the job, and here we have completely opposite situation. We have it's partially open source project. We have plenty of small packages. I would say like I don't know, maybe 15, something like that. We have two main applications, both built on React, mobile and like desktop and mobile, Electron and how it's called, React Native. So it's all placed in different GitHub repositories, and for me it's really inconvenient since, for example, I would like to change, for example, the store of both applications are located in a different package, in a separated package, and for me it's a big headache to make pull requests in 3 repos at once, to make all the npm links if I want to develop it locally. So I feel like I really need to like justify switching to Monorepo. And finally, my question is like, how would you start this process of convincing the team of going to the Monorepo path? And also, like, in that particular situation, what do you think? Does it worth it, or is it better to keep it as it is? Thank you.
Okay, so in this case it's a kind of complicated, because that's why I mentioned about the 3 examples about monolith, polyrepo, and monorepo, because I think that it makes sense according to your reality. You know, because right now this is very painful to us. To every time that we need to make some change, because we have a shared component as well, and we have kind of 12 sources. So every time that we need to, you know better, yeah. And every time that we need to create, make some change, we need to create 11 PRs. And every time is like this, you know, so every time you need to create 11 PRs, share that with the team, everybody needs to review it, and sometimes it's very painful. And not just because of it, but also because the way as you will be able to onboard some new joiner, or to handle with dependency, also it's very important. You know, so, but again, it really depends on your reality and the way, the culture that you have in your team as well, because it's very important. Because if it's one thing more collaborative, it's okay. Because since currently, in our case here, we have an excellent team, and we have an excellent communication between us. So it's okay every time that we create some PR, we share that with the team, and who can check something there, we'll check, and that's it. But sometimes when you don't have a good communication in your team, it's not so easy to have this kind of alignment. It's better to maintain as it is. You know, so at least that's my point of view, because sometimes it will disturb more than help you. Because I already saw some situations like this, because in some companies that I worked before, that they have a bunch of repositories, and that worked very fine to them. You know, so, and in other companies that Monorepo doesn't work so fine as I'm trying to apply here. So it really depends on the case that you have in your company, and the culture that you have, and the integration that you have in your team. You know, there are a bunch of things that you need to take into consideration before make this change, exactly because it will affect the daily and all the workflow that you have. And even, as we discussed before, about the way as you will deliver the software, the way as you will put in production. This is the main, I think that the most important thing that needs to be taken into consideration during this change.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, I have a comment, if I may.
That's a comment.
I would like to add how to start. So I would suggest you to maybe just go ahead and make a prototype with yarn or PNPM. It's worth nothing just to merge them into one folder I mean, to add this property workspaces. This is one approach, and you will see whether it makes sense, how easy it would be to migrate everything into, maybe not everything, but maybe packages into Monorepo. Alternatively, you may try to use submodules to just experiment whether it would be easy as well to merge them together. So the prototype would be beneficial to see maybe the reasons why to migrate or not to migrate.
Thanks as well.
And also because we can start another fight here talking about Git flow or trunk based, for example, because it also will have a big impact the way as we will handle this.
I think he suffered from something related to my question, because he mentioned some projects are open source, some are not. When you move into a monorepo, that becomes way harder, because now you gotta open source it, so you gotta be on GitHub. I think you made a lot more research than I did on monorepos. How would one manage one big monorepo with some stuff you want private in your company, some stuff public, but everything following the same CI pipeline? Do you have any idea? Not same CI pipeline, but like all the benefits of monorepo. I want this to depend on something else, and I want everything in one end-to-end pipeline so I can test breaking changes, right?
In this case, I think that's okay because, again, it will be more about the way as you are releasing your software, the way as you are putting things in production, than some other thing. Because when it comes to CI/CD, right, I can tell you that I will release just this package instead of all of them. So if I have some private package, I don't need to publish it. Or if I have a public package, okay, I can release it in my pipeline. So it will according to the pipeline. I think that's the easiest way in all this scenario because we will be able to know which package we will release, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that in this part, in GitHub Actions or Azure DevOps or some other pipeline, Jenkins, for example, I'm pretty sure that we have this option to select the package that we will release and when and for the environment that we want to do this. So I think that in this case, and that's why I also mentioned about CI/CD a lot of times, because if you don't have a good DevOps to support you, or if you don't have a good knowledge about it, it will be very hard to maintain. Because again, we are talking about software production. Yeah. So we need to have a good knowledge when it comes to create a good pipeline and a good process to from the development to the release. So I think that it's more about that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think I phrased the question wrong because it wasn't focused on CI. It was like, thank you. Was like when you make monorepo, you're wrapping the repo and version control around the whole thing, right? How do you manage that when some parts of it need to be public, but some others don't? Because like, the way I understand it is you make the repo, you put it in GitLab, GitHub, anywhere else, but like this is the boundary you set in the monorepo. Is there any way to have granular control or access of like folders or repos inside of the repo?
Yeah, exactly. I don't think so exactly, because one thing that I showed here, of course, that you can here, because at least in some examples and things that I saw before, every time that you will create your reference to the current version of some package. So if I have something, and that's why also it's important to have tests and things, because if I have some breaking change in some module, and I need to be completely sure that it shouldn't affect some other module, because every time I will use the current version for all of them. So yeah, but no, I don't. I know that with PNPM there is this option, but I don't know exactly how it works because sometimes I don't think that it even makes sense, because imagine that I will have a version here for a shared component, and I need to have a different version for each module. And it will be huge messy sometimes, because I just will be able to use some version because this version works fine for this module, but for this other doesn't work.
I think I understand your question. The most iconic user of Monorepo is Google, and what they do is all the private stuff it's in a Monorepo, and the public stuff like Google Chrome or Android, it's in a public repo. It's separated. So I don't think there's a way of set permissions or visibility inside Monorepo. If there was, I think Google was doing it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So final question, guys.
Yeah, so I'm a backend engineer. I don't work a lot of frontend, a little bit, but not a lot. So
We love everyone. Okay.
I know at least one guy here that doesn't do it.
It's backend. I accept.
I'm a backend as well.
Safety.
The thing is, my previous job, I started a startup and I made a monorepo actually in that. And in the end, it turned out a very good thing, because when we started sharing our API, we shared all of our services, microservices, as one package. And we could say to the clients, like, let's go, there is 1.0 here, you can use 1.0. And so it made things very easy to share and to deploy. But we had one guy that spent 2 weeks tuning the CI with Nomad, HashiCorp Nomad, a lot. And so it was his baby, actually. So it's something to say. And in my current company, I'm actually going back from Monorepo to Polyrepo. Because we have around 80 Lambda functions. So it's a lot of code, and we develop mainly in Golang. So my question for you is that, are monorepos for every language? Because the solution you presented is for JS and things like that. But in Golang, I don't feel that the solution would work.
Kubernetes.
Yeah, Kubernetes, yes, of course, but it's not.
No, I mean the project. The Kubernetes is in Go, right?
Yeah.
And the repository, they are using Monorepo.
Yeah, but as I said, I used to use Monorepo, and I'm just going away for it, because I think there is not one size fits all solution. And yeah, so my question was just to say, do you have an idea about all languages, all coding languages can be done in Monorepo or not?
Thank you. So, in this case, I think that's not about the language, but the way as you organize your project, right? Because it can be Python or JavaScript or Ruby or anything else, because every time it will be more about the way as you are structuring your repositories and your things than some other thing. The only thing that we cannot mix at all is if I'm creating some monorepo or if I'm creating some monolith. Because this is the point that we need to pay attention, exactly because there are some confusion sometimes, exactly because we can start to create something and in the middle of the way we just figure out that actually we migrated from polyrepo to a monolith again. But I think that about the language, again, it's the way as you are managing your code than some other tool or some other thing. It's not just about the language, but it's about the way as you are organizing your project. So because, again, as I said, I know that Kubernetes is using a lot of things, another project in Golang is using, so it's not about the language, but the way as you organize your code.
And just to end, I'm actually more orienting myself to a domain mode. We would say, okay, we work by domain, and it makes things easier for us.
Yeah, and exactly. Again, that's why I presented here 3 different options, exactly because sometimes it makes sense using one of them and sometimes the other. So it will be according to your project, your reality, your team, and so on. Not just about the language or what I like to use because it's fancy or something like that, you know. Okay, sorry, Fabio.
No. I did stop because you guys going all night, right? Yeah. So.